By this stage in maths, you should be pretty familiar with the idea of angles and how they are measured. Up till this point, we've used a degree as the basic unit of angle measure, and you should know a few things. You should know that if an angle is less than 90 degrees, we'd call this an acute angle. You should know that anything that looks like this, and we mark it like this with a little square, is called a right angle. And you should know that that's 90 degrees. And anything bigger than that would be obtuse. Sorry, anything bigger than 90 degrees but less than 180 would be obtuse. If we had an angle like this, so that makes a straight line, we'd call it a straight angle. And it should be 180 degrees. And hopefully you're aware that if we have anything bigger than that, so the angle around here, we would have what's called a reflex angle. And that would be bigger than 180 but less than a full rotation. Hopefully also you know that in a full circle we have 360 degrees. Now up till this point, you know, you've kind of gotten used to these things called degrees. You know how big different angles look, but degrees and the idea of having 360 of them in a circle is actually kind of arbitrary. It was just decided one day that we'd call a circle 360 degrees, and we'd chop it up into little pieces, and each one of those pieces would be a degree. The reason that we use 360, I mean, it is a nice number to divide by lots and lots and lots of things, but the main reason that we use it just has to do with our planet. And you'd probably be aware that there's about 360 days in a year. There's 365 days. That's about equal to 360. So in terms of the Earth, it goes roughly 1 degree around the sun every day. And back when, you know, lunar and constellations would have been used to measure, you know, the days and the seasons and the years, it was convenient if the Earth went around the sun 1 degree every day, roughly. Okay, there's a little bit of wiggling you've got to do. You've got to stick in an extra month every now and then to make up for the 5 days, but basically you can use that, and it's a convenient number to work with. So that's the only reason we use degrees. In mathematics though, mathematics isn't necessarily tied to the planet Earth. It can be dealing with all sorts of things. We actually don't like using degrees. Up to this point you have used them in maths because they're easy to understand and they're easy for primary school students to get their head around. But in higher level mathematics we use a different kind of measure of angle, and we call this measure a radian. And radians, the difference between degrees and radians is kind of like the difference between other different units. So we use degrees Celsius, for example, to measure temperature. But other countries, in particular America, use degrees Fahrenheit. And those are just two different measures of the same thing, but you've got to know what you're measuring things in. Similarly, nowadays we use the metric system, so we use things like meters, but you could measure distances in feet and inches. Okay, so there's all these different measures that we can use, and we're used to dealing with different units in other areas of maths. Now we're going to look at a different unit of angle called the radian, and the radian is going to be a much more natural one for us to use when we are dealing with angles in maths.